Don't we all want to go to each other's sets and just,
I do.
and just be very small?
I'm loving everything I'm hearing. I'm like,
want
man.
to.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Hollywood Reporter's Director Roundtable. I'm Scott Feinberg, and I'm so thrilled and honored to be joined by 6 outstanding filmmakers behind 2025 masterpieces. And I'd love to ask, if you had not become a filmmaker, what would you be doing today?
That's an easy one for me because I had to decide between exploration and science on the one hand and filmmaking on the other hand. And I've made that decision several times and gone back and forth.
Yes.
I took 8 years off from Hollywood to do 7 deep ocean expeditions.
Kathryn, you were at art school, right?
Yeah, it'd be painting.
Ryan, how about you? You were an athlete?
I was, but I don't think I was good enough to still be doing it. So I'm actually struggling right now. I probably have a coffee shop. I think, yeah. I got pretty good at making espresso. So.
Yorgos, I know you've had a photography exhibition recently. Is that something that could have been a path for you?
I guess it just sounds too close to what I'm doing now, so I was thinking like a baker or something.
Yeah.
You guys can have shops.
I could be provide you with all, like pastries and stuff.
I would like that very much.
Yeah.
How about you, Chloe?
Private detective.
And you were serious about that, right?
Very
At one
serious
point,
about it. Mm-hmm. And then I realized it's actually quite dangerous. I don't know. But make believe is better.
That's good. And Joachim?
I don't know how to do anything else. I'm just grateful they let me. But I don't think skating. It's a bit like Ryan. We were talking about it. I used to be a pretty good skater. I'm too old now. But I think something with people. I don't have the academic skills probably, but like to be a psychologist or help people or something. I don't know.
So for each of you, if you had to point to one film above all others, which was it that kind of nudged you down this road?
I would say The Wild Bunch. It's so epic and iconic, and at least it certainly impressed me. I think I saw Wild Bunch on a double bill with Mean Streets, and that was just transformative.
Well, I grew up in Beijing, and we didn't have Hollywood movies. Since you're here, Terminator is the first film I've ever seen. And they would let one Hollywood film in per week on a Sunday, and I think that was the first time I go, holy shit.
Jim, for you, I have a couple
It's the same answer. It's 2001: A Space Odyssey, but really not just because my mind was blown by the cinema of it, and I became fascinated by Kubrick and his whole methodology, but I wanted to know how they did it. And to me, that was the leap. It's like then I started building models and using my dad's Super 8 camera to make space shots. And once you're kind of down that path, it just gathers momentum, rolling downhill.
My father did sound work. He's a sound designer on an animation film called Pitchcliff Grand Prix, which I'm sure none of you have seen, but we'll try to send it to you. No, but it was made in the late 70s when I was a kid. And I went there and saw these grown-ups play with animation of dolls, and it really, and also seeing the result of that and being kind of proud that my dad was a part of it, I think that really affected me.
Ryan?
I didn't know I was gonna make movies when I saw it, but it was probably Malcolm X. And my dad took me, and I remember just being kind of overwhelmed by all of it. So that was probably where it absolutely started.
Yorgos?
Remembering back what was like cinema for me when I was growing up was like, Spielberg films like Indiana Jones and Jaws, and those films were like an out-of-the-world experience for me when I was growing up.
Diving into these specific projects, Kathryn, I'd love to start with you, and I think just to kind of set up the origin story if we can, I think it was exactly 50 years ago that you made a short film called Psychological Operations in Support of Unconventional Warfare. Years later, in 2002, was K-19 The Widowmaker, about a nuclear sub that began to melt down, and now on the heels of The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, we have A House of Dynamite about America's response to a nuclear attack. What is at the root of your interest in this subject matter, and how did it lead to this particular film at this particular moment?
I'm curious about the military-industrial complex and foreign policy. and how we are sort of at the mercy of it. And it's always been intriguing to me, and trying to understand it, trying to unpack it, trying to decipher it, and also how we're sort of made vulnerable by it. And in the case of this current one, an interest obviously in the prospect of nuclear war and how sort of it's become normalized. I mean, I grew up at a time when we were in the duck and cover era. We had to hide under our desk in case of an atomic blast. And now it feels like the specter of it has kind of returned with a lot of various saber rattling around the world. And here we are. And I think it's a worthy conversation, let's put it that way.
Absolutely. And I know that is something that was on your mind from a young age too, Jim, the prospect, right?
Sure. I bought a book, Ghosts of Hiroshima, which I want to make at some point. And I share Kathryn's, generational perspective on it. Being a kid in the 60s was to have the Cold War be real for you,
Right.
and realize that you're powerless, that other people are in command of this thing. And I think the big takeaway from your movie should be that it boils down to one guy. In the United States, the president is the only person who has the power to launch a retaliatory strike or to even launch an offensive strike. And people need to think about that when they vote next time.
I want to talk about Avatar now because free-associating a connection here. Vicarious experience is something that I think was at the center of a film that, Jim, you co-wrote and produced and Kathryn directed 30 years ago. That was Strange Days, film in which technology makes that vicarious experience possible. And around that same time, I believe you're thinking for the first time about Avatar, where, of course, technology makes it possible for a disabled human to...
It was almost the opposite. It was collecting sensory data from another person and then playing it back. And then this was, your consciousness being projected into another body and acting through that body.
Right.
And we were developing those actually at the same time. It was in 90, well, I think we were doing it in 93. 93, yeah. Avatar came a little later. I wrote that in 95.
Yeah.
What was the initial impetus for Avatar and the idea that you would spend, here we are more than 3 decades later, leading up to this latest installment, which is looking at the aftermath of the familial loss that happens in The Way of Water. Just what set you on this path?
Well, the technology, or the science fiction idea of the technology that you could project your mind into, an alien body, was more of a means to an end, to get you into a world and to place a character into a world and into a culture. So it was looking at indigenous culture through the lens of science fiction and the way that their values might be very different. And actually, Avatar sort of gets a human audience to vote against themselves, bet against themselves by the end of the movie. But I don't think it's that simple. I think it's the aspirational value of the Na'vi is we want to go back to that version of ourselves that was connected with nature and that still cared about these things. And we all carry around this guilt that we've moved away from that in our urbanized technological society. And I think that's why that film resonated. I think that's why the second film resonated, and we'll see what happens next. You never know until you put it out there what's going to happen.
Well, Ryan, you have made films of all sorts and sizes, from low-budget indies to giant studio films, and I don't think you've ever quite blended genres as much as you have in Sinners. I wonder where the inspiration for it came from. I think you've said that you don't make films unless there's a personal connection.
Yeah, for me, it all starts with my uncle, my Uncle James Edmondson, who was for a long time like the eldest male family member I had, and he was from Mississippi, moved to Oakland when he was like 20 years old, and I was born and raised in Oakland. That's all I ever knew for a long time, and I used to just love spending time with him at his house, hanging out. If he had enough whiskey, he'll tell me a story about Mississippi. But the blues was always on around him, and for me, the blues music was his. It didn't belong to me. It was kind of music for my uncle, music for older people. And I started making movies, moved away from home, and in 2015 he got very sick, and I wanted to be there and be around him, but I was in Philadelphia making Creed and in LA finishing it up, and he was such a hard-working guy. He would always call me on the phone, "Don't worry about me, man, handle your business." He ended up passing away while I was in post-production, and I wasn't there. I had a lot of guilt around it. But what I would do when I think about him is I'll put on those old songs that he would have playing when we hung out, and I just got obsessed with it, and started to listen to it with a different ear, and start to study it, and that's kind of where where the idea came from. And one day I was listening to one of his old songs, a song called Wang Dang Doodle. It just hit me like a lightning bolt, like, oh, this could be a movie. And I love genre cinema too, so nobody knew that about me. So I thought it would be fun to make something a little more personal, a little more special, and pull from some of my favorite influences. And that's how we got the movie.
That's great. Yorgos, Bugonia is a reimagining, I guess is a word we could use, for a 2003 Korean film, Save the Green Planet, that also somehow speaks maybe even more to our current moment 20 plus years later. It seems like it came together faster than some of your other projects have. Is that true? And where did it start?
Yeah, because I guess because I wasn't involved from the beginning, that's why for me it was faster. But Will Tracy, who wrote the script, started working with Lars Knudsen and Ari Aster, developing the script. And it came to me at one point. They thought that I'd be interested in it, and obviously they were right. Yeah, it was the first film that I haven't developed myself for many years. And I read the script, and it was the first time that I read a script, and I feel like it's almost ready to make because of the reasons you mentioned, but it was also like extremely funny and complex and relevant and different, I think, in a way to the stuff that I've done, but it made absolute sense to me why they would think of me for this film. And it was a quick process. I worked with Will a little bit on the script just to make it more my own and bring in my own sensibilities. But it was, like a couple of passes on the script with Will, and then, off we went.
Yeah. Well, Chloé, you have said that even after Steven Spielberg and Sam Mendes, two major filmmakers in their own right, even after they approached you about directing Hamnet, even after that, you hesitated quite a bit about saying yes to directing this. What were your reasons for having pause, and what got you to reconsider?
When they told me the log line is about focusing on a mother losing a child, just hearing that was quite triggering because the character of a mother did not exist in my films before, because like many, I carry a quite deep mother wound, and I think in your film, your avatar explores that in a universal way, but it is the greatest wound a person can carry, and probably the hardest one to heal. And so the idea of making a film about that and then be swimming in that river, I was like, I don't think so. But I did go through a midlife crisis for 4 years and realized that if you don't deal with it, it's gonna come get you. So I thought maybe now is the time.
Wow, okay.
Nice.
Was it cathartic for you to make the film?
Yes, because just like in Sentimental Value as well, I knew I could hold on to Will Shakespeare because I know that person who is afraid out of that and escape into a fantasy world. I can, when in doubt, I can run into his world, and knowing that the power of art and storytelling is going to carry me through this process the way it had carried him through his experience. So I thought, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
Barely made it out of it, but here I am.
Glad,
Thank you for making that decision.
Yes. And Joachim, Sentimental Value, which, like so many of your films, was shot in the area around Oslo, right? Where I believe where you also live. Centers on a family of artists. There's intergenerational kind of hurt and resentments. Obviously a very specific story, but on the other hand, I wanted to ask you, I can't help but notice you come from a family of filmmakers. Your grandfather directed films that were in Cannes in 1955 and 1960. Your father was, as you mentioned, a sound designer on films. Your mother, I know, was a director at one point. You grew up, you've said, on film sets. Was your family a jumping off point for this, or just coincidental?
My grandfather, Erik Løken, was in the resistance during the Second World War, and he got captured during the Nazi occupation of Norway. And he survived after imprisonment through making jazz music. And he made his first film, kind of in an environment where in Norway at the time no one made movies. Wow. So he made a film that got to Cannes in 1960, his first time, and his only time to go there. And it was a year where, you had Vincent Minnelli and you had Bergman and Antonioni, everyone. And my grandfather came and they said, "You made a new wave film." And he said, "I call it jazz movie." He was a jazz musician. So in my family, that meant a lot, but there wasn't any infrastructure to really support him. So we only made one more feature film in his life. But so I think I thought a lot about him, and I also observed as a child. He passed away when I was 9 years old. But I observed someone, I think, trying to survive through the creative act. And now that I'm suddenly the father of 2 young girls, I think this film also comes out of that conversation I'm having with Eskil Vogt, my co-writer, who I always write with, about where are we in life and what does this mean, this thing we do. And I'm still struggling to understand why the hell we do what we do. But I try to put that into the movie.
That's therapy.
Maybe it
we
is,
work out our stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Sometimes in a more abstract or removed way, sometimes in a very direct way, but we're all working out our stuff.
There are some of you, people are studying your movies in universities, there are critics, people are writing books about you guys. They have their own theories, but I wonder in your
They're always wrong, by the way.
They're always wrong. Well, that's why here's our chance to set the record straight. Do you guys see a connective thread that runs through all or at least most of your films? And is there any explanation for that, if there is one?
All of mine are love stories.
Right.
Of one form or another.
Yep.
Right? Either a romantic girl meets boy, or a marriage that's breaking up, or a woman creates a relationship in moments with a little girl that she feels protective of. I mean, they're all love stories in some way. So they're all kind of sappy.
What would be, if you were to, in front of all of us, just a small group and our viewers, why might
Just a little therapy right now. Just you and me.
That's it. Okay. Why do you think that might be, that you return to love stories?
I think it's people think of me as a very technical filmmaker, and I can do that. I love to do that, but for me, it's all about the heart. It's all about connecting. The storytelling. First rule of storytelling is you connect with your audience. And so I guess I go to kind of what the universal experience of humanity is. We all want to be seen, we want to be loved, we want to feel safe in a relationship, all of those things. Now, I can quantify that now, but when I started out, I couldn't have quantified it. I was really just reacting to all my influences, the things I thought were cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do cool stuff in my movies, like the cool stuff I saw in other movies. That was my film school, was the drive-in movie theaters in Orange County.
Right.
I just learned how to answer the questions better as I went along.
But isn't that interesting, though? Just what you're describing, I can also feel that we are all probably quite obsessed with the format of cinema, right? Like movies, right? Mm-hmm. You found the form, and then you revealed yourself through it. And I don't know how, I would love to hear how the rest of you feel about that, but I also started out just thinking I was making a movie to be allowed to make a movie. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out slowly that, wow, people are talking back to me about stuff that I care about. And that's a good thing, I think, at the end of the day, even though we can be shy about it. Huh?
But I think that revelation is kind of subconscious. You can't do it intentionally. It's going to happen no matter what. I mean, it's like a Rorschach.
I think you throw yourself into a place that feels dangerous, and then you learn to swim in that pool. You throw yourself into the deep end, and then you find out something about yourself.
Right.
If you go in with such a roadmap, like everybody extolled the virtues of Hitchcock with this perfectly road-mapped film and everything, it's like, that doesn't interest me. I want to go where I don't know what to do, And
I don't feel safe.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel that way, guys? I mean, you're always doing crazy shit. you do stuff that would never occur to me in a million years.
But they're love stories, basically. I guess, like Kim said, I never thought I would make a film in Greece. I just thought I'll make commercials, earn a living, and at some point it dawned on me, especially when I became more technically proficient through making all these commercials, I go why don't we just grab a camera and just go? We don't need lights, we don't need makeup, we don't need anything. Just get 3 actors, go somewhere with 5 people and just make a film. That's how I made my first film, and it was a reaction, and it was more about form. It was a reaction to the polished world that I knew. It was, in a way, form, and it was a little bit of a love story and a detective story. And then, when I realized we can just make films like that, I went on to make my second film, Dogtooth, which was more about thinking more about what interests me in exploring in terms of human nature and societal structures and human behavior, and coming from Greece, which is a kind of Mediterranean type of family structure. That was something that was interesting to me, and see how I can take that to extremes and expose things about that structure. But yeah, it did start out as, like you said, like I can just make a film. Take a 16mm camera, go somewhere, make a film.
Well, for a number of you, I know it's also place is something that runs through maybe not everyone, but many of your films. I mean, obviously, Joachim, that's Oslo for you, Ryan, Oakland, and Chloé. Interestingly enough, for someone who was born in China, it seems like the American West for many of them was something that you were drawn to. So I guess coming from where you do, is there any rhyme or reason for how you've wound up where you've gone?
You know, every northern Chinese person has some Mongolian blood. Because, you know, stuff happened there.
So you come from a line of conquerors.
Half of me. The other half is conquered.
Right.
Like conquered many times.
So
But
no conflict there.
no conflicts there, just the inner civil war. I remember whenever I hear Mongolian music growing up, I cry. You know, so I would be yearning for the plains of Mongolia when I was in Beijing, and I was yearning for the plains when I was in New York. There's a through line to your previous question. It might be a bit of a downer, but I think it's fear of death. You know, I'm terrified of death. I did not grow up in an environment where there is religion or there is a way of looking at it as natural part of the human experience, but more as something taboo and bad and something we have to fix. So something to be ashamed of, and somehow it's weakness. And being deeply sensitive and knowing that I'm not really living my life if I'm so afraid to die. And so to be drawn to nature, especially the nature that has now been tamed and controlled. And once you have no choice but to be part of it, once you're forced to vibrate as part of nature, you actually become one with it. And then the illusion of separation dissolves. And then you're fearless. And then you're no longer afraid to die. And then you can live and love with your hearts open. So I think the drawn towards that landscape is for that reason.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because I feel...
I'm scared.
No, it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's really relevant, and it makes sense in your oeuvre, in your movies. And I've seen something that occurs in your early films is very often a soul character up against the sky.
Yeah.
But in the new one, they're engulfed by trees, and there's a different type of magic. So are you developing into less scared of the open sky and death?
I think so. I think the midlife crisis really helped. That in my 30s is about that, horizontal, go as far wide as possible like the pioneers. But in my 40s is about containing myself in a very strong structures and stillness and not running away from myself, so I have nowhere else to go but descend into myself.
The next chapter here, if we can, I'd like to talk about how you all work with actors. And I want to establish also out of the gate here, several of you obviously made your 2025 films with repeat collaborators. Ryan, Michael B. Jordan has been at the center of every one of your films, and it's exciting to see you guys keep coming back together and bringing out the best in each other. And I wonder, how did you first begin working together, find each other, and why do you think it is such a great working relationship?
Yeah. So it was like really utilitarian, man. Like I needed somebody to play this real guy who existed, who was murdered a few years before we started filming. And I was really into like the fidelity of it, you know what I mean? Because this young man was executed on camera, you know, so people knew what he looked like where I was from. And that was really the only place I figured it would play, was in Oakland, you know? And I come from a place that's real, we got a chip on our shoulder, you know, it's like a Brooklyn to San Francisco, but it's also like a little sibling to LA, you know what I mean, for the California situation. So like authenticity means everything to us. And if I cast somebody who didn't look like Oscar Grant, I was dead in the water, you know? So I kind of narrowed it down, and Mike was one of the guys. And I started to look at his work with a critical eye, and it was just obvious to me that this dude was like a movie star. You know, he was in movies, kind of he'll be like the third lead, or he's in a TV show kind of in a supporting role. But he would find a way to be the person that people remembered, you know, no matter where he was at. And then I wrote the screenplay, went to the Sundance Screenwriters Labs where I met
Same year,
Chloé,
2012, right?
And Joachim was our advisor. So I met this genius. And
I was a confused kid, and you guys were so good. So how could I be an advisor?
No.
Sorry. No, that was an honor. That was an honor.
They played us Oslo, and we was like, everybody was like, pfft,
I remember.
and ran to him for advice.
Yeah.
And my movie was set over the course of 24 hours, like his movie was. Like, so I was soaking up all the advice he gave out, and yeah, like I sat with him. We were from 3,000 miles away, roughly the same age. I'm about a year older than Mike, and we just clicked, And then we got on set, and he was masterful, got a lot of God-given talent, and God made him look how he looks. You know what I'm saying? He had no control over that. He hit the lotto there, but he just works and is very selfless. We make a great set. You know what I mean? Everybody's gonna be respected. He knows everybody's name from the PA to the producer. He's just how he was raised. When you find somebody and it works like that, you don't want to let it go. And the story I never told anybody for how we got linked up on Creed. It was while we were doing chemistry reads for Fruitville, and I got a call to go meet with Stallone and pitch him. And Stallone's agent was like, "Hey, yo, you gotta be here." I'm like, "Yo, I'm in auditions for this movie." He's like, "What's that movie?" "Hey, man, you gotta be here or it ain't gonna happen." So I had to explain to Mike that I had to leave the auditions. And I needed him to hold it down while I left. He's like, "Yo, where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go. I might make a Rocky movie." And he's like, "Yo, if you put me in the movie, you can go." So I didn't think it was gonna happen. We shook hands right there. "All right, bro, you can play in this movie if it goes." But that's how it happened for me.
That's amazing.
Great.
That's great.
Doors only opened for a split second, and he knew to go through it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Yorgos, you and Emma, how do you explain that?
We just met, and it was obvious from the beginning that we got along, and we worked together on The Favorite, and that was a great experience. From then on, we just kept building on that, and there was a lot of trust between us, and we became very close friends. And she's become a producer in the films because it was just a natural thing. Like, I wanted to run everything by her, and I trust her sensibilities and taste and thoughts about the entirety of the film and the production. So it just became a natural thing, and we're creating like a bigger group around us that involves crew as well, that comes back, and other actors that also we keep working with, and it just becomes like a theater troupe, like traveling around making films in various places.
And do you, Jim and Joachim, is it something that you just know at the minute you start working with Sigourney or Renata? I mean, Renata literally, it was one line in Oslo, and then you write the next movie for her.
Yeah, she was in Oslo August 31st. And because I'm obsessed with light, and we were waiting for the transitional light every morning for 8 days, and then shot something else for the rest of the day. She was actually on set for 9 days or something altogether with that one line. And I felt so safe around her. I could give her a task. She was kind of a character that was hanging out with the main character throughout the night. And I gave her a task and bicycling around or hanging out at the party. And I would look at the rushes coming back. And everything she does is interesting. Yeah. She makes a great choice. I didn't really direct her much, but she was just a human being living in the background there. And then I thought, she'll be a great star. And then she got all these roles in theater, but no one cast her for lead parts in movies. So I wrote her Worst Person in the World. And that's it. And I'm just grateful she wanted to continue to work.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just, we'll say, in the connecting from, for many years up to Avatar movies at Sigourney, but there's obviously years with
Paxton,
Arnold.
I worked with a number of times, Arnold, Lance Henriksen, and then the principals in Avatar I've now worked with 3 times. Yeah. I was terrified of Sigourney before I met her. She was Ripley, and I had written this part. I just prayed that she liked the script, which she did. But I think it's an issue of trust and respect, bi-directional, and you want to be trusted by the actor, you want to be respected by the actor, but it's earned, and I trust and respect the actors that I love to work with now. I mean, when Avatar went out and became this huge thing, it was like, well, do I really want to go back into that and have that hang over my head, indefinitely? And I thought, well, yeah, but they're great people.
Yeah.
They're really lovely people, and they're so vivid, just in what they're able to create and what Zoe can do, what Sam can do, and Sigourney. I brought her back from the dead. I wrote a whole other character for her, and it has a troupe kind of feeling to it, very much almost like an old radio theater troupe. And the thing that's lovely about performance capture is people can play other characters. Like if Zoe got bored on the first film, she'd just play somebody else for a scene.
Wow,
you know.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's great.
Yeah, and Kate did that too. If she didn't have any lines or a moment in a scene, she'd just play somebody else. So I think Kate's got about 3 characters, and I think Zoe's got 3 or 4.
That's amazing.
But we also have this actual troupe, where we call them the troupe, and I call them the Swiss Army knife, jack of all trades kind of actors, because they might play an old man one day, or a boy the next day, male warrior the next day, and they can do anything, and they're just constantly changing hats, changing characters, and it's very egalitarian, because when you're on a movie with a big movie star, everybody knows when it's time for Tom Cruise's close-up, and the world kind of stops while everything gets ready. But in performance capture, we're just capturing the authenticity of the moment between human beings, and we figure out all the coverage later. That's all later.
Can't imagine
There's
doing
never there's no close-up, baby. So everybody's kind of equal.
With your performance capture, you can subsequently change the entire angle of the shot or the type of shot and everything.
We're not doing shots. We're doing performance.
Yeah.
And so it exists. It's more like theater rehearsal almost. There's no audience there. It feels like rehearsal. You can stop. You can start. You can change. You can move around. But you're focusing in on that. It's the thing we do. We try to find the authenticity of the scene.
I actually use rehearsals to train actors to accept my gaze, because if you sit with your friends and you stare at them and feel them all the time, they think you're crazy. So I kind of find this kind of acceptance, and sometimes I step back. I don't want to be in the way, but that they see that I have it sounds cheesy, but a loving gaze. I cast them because I dig them. I really want them to do well and support them, and then I can be close, and I'm allowed to be there. So that's what rehearsals.
It's a fine line, isn't it?
It's super, and sometimes it's almost like you see that they're dealing with shame, and you kind of pull back a little bit or something if that's a part of the scene. So,
but they all need something different, though. That's the crazy part.
Of course they do.
And I think we all instinctively key into what the actor needs in the moment. If that's a presence, or if that's get the hell out of the way.
Absolutely.
Well, I find, Chloé, you use methods that are not ones that I've heard often elsewhere.
I'm the weird one?
No, I don't think it's. But I'd love to hear how you arrived at some of these decisions, particularly at Hamnet. Like, there's a scene where Jessie Buckley's lying by a tree with the baby that I believe she would have just given birth to, and you're essentially like cuddled up next to her, I guess, directing her from that position. So just building a different sort of close relationship with your actors than many others would. Just how did you arrive at some of those techniques?
I like the performance troupe, the circus analogy you're supposed so stand by for that one, because it is going to be weird. But I think that's where we come from. Nowadays, like, there's all these rules and we have to follow, which is understandable. But at the same time, it's a very fine line what we're going through in our own lives, and then what's happening as we do as performers, storytellers. So it's messy, and it's embodied. And so I went in digging in those 4 years of midlife crisis of somatic expressions and embodied creativity. And so to get out of my head and go into the subconscious. And so there were a couple of modalities, old modalities that I pull out of mystery schools and Jungian psychology, and to experiment in Hamnet. Hamnet was a big experiment to work from that place. So there's dream work, working with dreams, and it's very from the Jungian lineage. And we will have that on set, and sometimes we would put 300 extras under into a collective dream right before we call action. And then there is tantric workshops, like which is come to the Hindu tradition, and it's working with energies and it's working with polarities. So we will get Paul and Jessie in a polarity workshop to see how much they can get into their gendered polarity to the extreme, and then let them clash into each other. So there's just different kinds of somatic exercises. So I don't rehearse the scenes, but I try to get them into this kind of into their bodies and have them comfortable with each other, and to know here are the containers where we can go. And once the container is really strong, then the water can go very deep. But that container is only strong and safe if it's embodied.
Are you saying the container of the character itself or the container that they're acting
Well,
within?
I think both. So once they are in their bodies and they have experienced each other in the most polarized way, then it's a seed planted, including, let's say, you get a Shakespeare family, including the children, doing a dream work together. So they're kind of dropped into their subconscious, and then you guide them into a collective dream. It might not be useful in the moment, but I trust that when seed is planted in the subconscious, and a chance to tap into the collective unconscious, then something bigger is going to be making this film through us, alongside with decisions we make consciously, but something bigger is going to come through in moments, usually when we need the most.
Do you throw something in during the scene, or do you try to stay external to that container?
Once the scene begins, we want to be as present as possible.
I mean,
There's
you
no
as
discussion.
director, are you saying, take that line again, or do this, or do that during the scene, or are you letting that sort of alternate reality that you've created with them run its course?
Usually it runs its course, unless there's a line, there's a moment I knew I have to feed that line, it came out of me. I try to do these exercises myself to make sure my decisions are coming from the body, not from the mind. And if it's truly from the body, then I will shout it out.
Don't we all want to go to each other's sets and
No, I do!
and just be very small?
I'm loving everything I'm hearing. I'm like,
I
I'm
want
like, man.
to.
So how transferable are these approaches that we've been talking about between sizes and scales? Do you feel, as a filmmaker, a huge difference when you're going, in terms of what you are having to do on a day-to-day basis, when you go from that small scale to, Marvel?
The biggest one is second units. Like that was a big one. When I'm like, they had to explain to me what it was. Like hey, it's gonna be another unit. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, it's gonna be a director, and it's like, I'm like, wait, excuse me? And they're like, oh yeah, they maybe don't record sound, and I'm like, they don't have sound. Like it was so much, like the size of these productions. So I told them, I was like, y'all not doing this second unit. So I'm like, I don't understand it. I'm not doing it. And I'm like, you know what? They say, well, what's your favorite action movies? So I say, you know what? Terminator 2, right? I said, like, if Terminator 2 had a second unit, then I'll do it. And they come back and say, I'm like, and they came back and they printed out the credits. The credits, bro. Pointed to it, and I was like, fuck. But it was great, man. Like I met my AD on Sinners, was my second unit AD, and I learned a lot from those folks that work on those units, man. But that was the big one.
Yeah.
Like when just the concept of like a whole nother crew. In Panther 2, we had our underwater unit, like walked off a way of water, like onto us. So it was all of these methodologies that they were like, hey, we do a breathe up right before we got a screen here, and then and I had to learn how to get down at the bottom of the
So
tank.
you had Kurt Kroc doing the breathe up with the actors?
Oh, bro, they gave me the whole
They were
routine.
good guys,
And I'm like, man, what else does James do? He's like, man, the whole set's vegan. I was like, damn, I can't do that.
And Chloe, would you add your experience of going from the art house to Marvel? Were you surprised by anything?
I actually didn't feel the difference very much. I think because when you make film with $5 million in the desert with 27 people without an AD, you do everything yourself. It's extremely stressful. And then so at Marvel, when we did Eternals, it was like, wow, people are doing stuff for me, and things are taken care of. And then you ask for something that's there, people show up to work. It's great. But also, what my experience was that 27 people stayed the same.
I was going to say, there's an intimacy around the camera that doesn't change.
Yeah.
Beyond that, there may be
that's
there
crazy.
may be
Beyond
levels
that,
of
yeah.
extras and production and Musco lights and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there's I think it's the 5 people around the camera: the
True.
DP,
AD.
the principal actors in the scene. That intimacy never changes, no matter what's beyond that.
Yeah.
And that's where our focus is anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think scope makes size. I think it's really the story. I mean, like, sentimental value is huge. It's just gigantic, and so it's really the story. and Fruitvale. Oh my God, you know, I just,
Impact.
it's impact, it's story. That's where the size is.
With these last three films, Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, well, not the last three, but your trilogy,
Right.
Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, and House of Dynamite, making films that deal with the American military and government and all of that, segments of it have given you pushback. Is that a badge of honor? Would you have been happy if that hadn't happened?
Well, I never anticipated it necessarily. Yeah, I just think what's interesting is there's a conversation. Whether it's antagonistic or productive, there's a conversation. And that was the intention of the film. And so I feel like thrilled that, you know, we've arrived at that place.
Jim, you've been the leading figure in the area of motion capture and 3D technology for,
We say performance capture.
pardon me, performance capture. Is it being used as much as you would have expected when you embarked on this kind of revolution?
It's very niche. It's very niche. It was, we never intended to revolutionize how movies are made. And if you can shoot something with a camera, I mean, there's nothing I love more than hand holding with a camera in my hands and a couple of actors, and just, you know, it's that intimacy around the camera that I love. You know, performance capture is a means to an end to do a specific thing, which is quite niche. Performance capture is just a way to do makeup. It has to be recognizably the actor, but pushed a little bit into a slightly near human character, so it has limited applications. If we hadn't made so much damn money with Avatar, I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to sell it to anybody else. Trust me, it's a nightmare, but it's fun. It's fun. I mean, it's a nightmare downstream, but the actual act of creation is a lot of fun, because you're not worried about camera and dolly track and time of day and all the other things that you worry about you got to stamp that image, that sensor or that film plane with the thing. You know, that's, you know, and you don't have to do that in performance capture. All you got to do is just get the essence of the scene and you're good. And then you sort all that other stuff out later. And the actors love it for that reason, because they don't have to hit marks. They don't have to worry about the lighting or how to turn or any of that sort of thing.
Man, I'm just trying to think about how you doing it. Like, are you taking notes on where you want to be when you watch it?
You know how you'd line up maybe with a viewfinder or a video camera or however you kind of block your scene. Just do the same thing once with the virtual camera. You see where the characters are going to be. There's a waterfall there. There's a floating mountain up there. There's a creature over there. And then forget about it. And then I just jump in and I get right in, like you say, get right in their space. And after a while, it's like wildlife photography. They're used to the camera hide to the blind. They're used to me being there. You know, I try to be as you know, tiny as possible, but I love it.
Ryan, one thing that got a lot of attention was that with Sinners, you made a deal that 25 years from now, the ownership will revert to you. What made you decide with this film to seek that, and is it something that you think will become more common going forward?
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I can't speak to what's going to happen going forward. But what I will say about that is it was something that I looked to other filmmakers, you know, for. Like, I'm constantly looking at what everybody else is doing to kind of find my way. I have a hard time leaping to a place that I haven't, you know, haven't at least seen somebody get to before, you know. And yeah, I knew it was something that was possible. You know, filmmakers that I know had done it, and I was fortunate enough to have made some movies like that had some financial success. This one, what I figured those things that bought me was the ability to write on spec. You know, and I was coming out of we were coming out of the collective strikes, the Writers Guild strike, the SAG strike, and everything felt like existential. The conversations about cinema and are people still going to the movies? Do young people go to the movies? You know, all these things, kind of all of it. You know, it was it was a, you know, it still is a scary time, but it was a scary time when it felt like, man, this next movie I'll do might be my last. You know what I mean? And it being so much about capitalism as much as it is about anything, and my people's relationship with it here in this country. Right. And my uncle was a sharecropper, like the folks in the film who had been, you know, fucked over his whole life. You know. And I'm telling his story, so it was one of those things where we went out with the script and had a list of asks, and fortunately enough, like credit to the health of the business, a lot of studios were into it, you know, like, and that was, you know, heartwarming, and then terrifying once Warner Brothers said, all right, let's go. I didn't want to make them look stupid, you know what I mean? Like, and if anybody like looks to me and what I did for motivation for something, I think that's awesome, because I definitely looked around to Tyler Perry and M. Night Shyamalan and Quentin, you know, and everybody else. I'm constantly looking at what folks who did it before me are doing and how they navigating certain things. You know, so I felt very fortunate.
Sure.
I want that deal. Damn it. 25 years from now, I'll be 96 if I make a movie next year. I get that deal.
So
I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with it at the age of 96.
But if you had that deal back then,
At least you know you have it.
I might not even know what it is.
but can you imagine if you had that deal when you made Avatar?
I wish I had.
So Chloe, you mentioned taking 4 years off. That was very understandable because almost overlappingly, but released in back-to-back years were Nomadland and then Eternals. Yorgos, you have now made 3 in 3 years. There was 2023's Poor Things, 2024's Kinds of Kindness,
bless you, bro.
and now Bugonia. So I'd like to point that towards you two and just ask, what is the ideal amount of time between films for a filmmaker?
I'm ready to take a break, as I've mentioned, and it has become a thing. He's taking a break from filmmaking, which is like I just want to go on holidays for a few months.
It's going to last a week.
Yeah, because like the last 4 or 5 years, I haven't stopped, and the films like almost overlapped. Like when I shot Kinds of Kindness when we were doing the VFX for Poor Things because I felt it was just too long and I didn't want to sit around, and we had this script, so I went like, why don't we go and shoot it until the VFX is finished, and then we can go and edit that one. And then Bugonia, I received that script and I got excited, and so when we went to Cannes to present Kinds of Kindness, we had already started prepping Bugonia. So it's too intense. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. At that point, it felt very exhilarating, but after a long time, doing it, you go like, I think, there should be some time in between films. So yeah, I'm ready for that time now.
Chloe, was 4 years too long or just right?
I think I don't have an answer to that because I think the internal landscape informed the external landscape, meaning that I actually don't believe that I choose the stories. I really do believe they choose me.
Right.
When whatever we're doing in our own lives and working on ourselves, and when you become the right conduit, I believe story exists past, present, future, way beyond us. I love the Australian Aborigines believe in the dream time, that our reality is dreamed into existence by the creator. So I like to think that I'm a conduit half of the time. Like I can have intentions and interests and questions I want to ask the world, but then at the right moment in my life, I will be chosen to tell certain kind of stories. And that could be back to back, that could be every 12, how many years. But when that happens, synchronicity will start happening around me. It's clearly you're chosen, it has to be now. And then you can decide if you want to answer the call or not, because it's not going to be easy. And so that's only until it gets to that point, I will leap.
Do you find that there's a sense of it being received while you're making the film, that the film's telling you what it's supposed to be? I've sort of gotten to that place, especially on this last film, where I felt like it wasn't me imposing my will on the story.
Right.
I can see that, having seen the film.
And Kathryn, do you seem to relate to that?
Yeah, no. I think what Chloe was saying about the stories find you, and then you're kind of incapable of not doing it. There's something, then it becomes a pull that's, indomitable.
I always go into the writing room with my dear friend Eskil Vogt. We made film scripts together. I directed 6 films, and I always have this idea of doing something a little bit more fancy or cool, and then something occurs, and it's like, okay, it's going to be this. And I'm always grateful for that, because I feel like my biggest anxiety is always going back to the blank page. And I don't develop. We write what we write that year, and then I make it. So that takes time also. And every time something happens, like I smashed my knee up, the worst person in the world, took then 4 years between I had to learn to walk again. For this one, I had 2 kids, so life. But I also make films about life, so I accept it. But I admire people who can I always look to other people like, ooh, how do you develop all those things at once and stuff? But I seem incapable. Maybe I'll learn one day.
You gotta do it your way.
I think by now that's what I do.
You gotta do it your way. Somewhere around that time, I was getting ready to work on this movie, I went to go see Andre 3000 do a flute concert.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, like it was in this place called The Cave in like Napa Valley where they do the jazz festival. He says, hey, me and my band, we just a bunch of people that have our antennas way up. And we're gonna play whatever comes to us in a moment. I was expecting to hear the album, you know what I mean? I was a little disappointed. but he says we just have our antennas up high. And we're gonna play whatever you guys give us, whatever hits us. I thought about it like every day working on a movie was like, yo, I gotta make sure that my antenna is up to catch whatever's around and whatever I'm responding to. But the antenna also has to be deep, like down within myself, so I can know where I'm at. You know what I mean? And what I'm responding to. So you know, that combination, you know, I thought about it all the time, you know.
Oh, that's interesting.
So the two most veteran members at this table are Jim and Kathryn. You guys have been doing this the longest. You were married from '89 to '91. You made films together after that.
We were married longer ago than half our lives.
And then continued to make great films together, incling, we mentioned Strange Days.
We love working together.
And I know that you guys have been very supportive. It's funny how your films always seem to come out in the same year. But I guess my question is, what is the biggest thing that you've each learned from the other?
We're loving this.
Can I jump?
Of course.
Authenticity. Kathryn cannot do anything that's not authentic. It would drive you nuts to do something that wasn't authentic. Seriously, I mean, it's like not about, for you, I think it's evolved to not be about pushing away that which is commercial. It's figuring out what's real in the world and then running that through your lens. And I look for that in my own work. I've seen you do it. I mean, we work together on films, but it's got to be real.
That's very kind of you.
No, but it can't be fake. It can't follow some formula, some alchemy that's imposed from without. It's utter authenticity, and that's the power of your films.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not saying I do it that well.
Kathryn?
I think the desire to just reach as far as you possibly can. I mean, that really comes from Jim. You know, just a reach that seems both improbable and impossible, and yet doable.
You do it.
Okay, so our last minute here. What is the most misunderstood film in your filmography that you would like people to go back and watch again? I think I heard you talk about yours, Joachim. What would it be?
It would probably be a film I'm terribly proud of.
Yes.
It's called Louder Than Bombs.
Yes.
That I think I have, you know, I was working with Devin Druid, Jesse Eisenberg, Isabella Pear, and Gabriel Byrne, and I was doing a dream project about family, deeply personal.
Yeah.
And it came after Oslo, August 31st, and I think people wanted me to do a repeat of that. And that kind of, and you remember that year at Cannes, we were there together, and we'd both done films in English language, and they were giving us hell about it. Do you remember this?
Which one?
You don't remember? Matt, we met at some party and we were talking about like there was
Wasn't
like
it
was Sorrentino, you and me were both we were all doing like English language. It became a thing, and I think we were a little bit hurt by it. Maybe not you as much as me. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox by saying I'm very proud of that film.
For me,
I
it's
would say-
Strange Days. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
maybe.
Go ahead.
I would say Detroit. I don't know. It was such an important piece to me, anyway. And you know, this horrible, horrible, horrible tragedy. And I don't know. I just think that was kind of misunderstood.
Film, yeah.
People should take another look at Detroit for sure. But I was saying Strange Days because nobody went.
I know.
They just didn't show up. It's a great movie. I love it. I'm very proud of it. I produced it and co-wrote it.
Strange
Kathryn
Days.
directed it, and it's.
That's the one people always bring up.
I want to
so
see
you know.
it.
Yeah.
What?
Strange Days is what everybody brings up. When I'm with Angela, whenever your name will come up.
Oh, Angela's so phenomenal.
Yeah, everybody brings up.
obviously.
Isabel.
Yeah, Strange Days.
She's
Strange
wonderful.
Mine is the most easy answer, Eternals. You know, I'm always learning, trying to be a better filmmaker.
Right.
Never say that any kind of film that's perfect or, it doesn't need to be improved. And then, will we ever ready? Sometimes maybe not, always could be better. So I've learned a lot. But I do feel that it was very much, for me, about a pantheon of gods, immortals discussing the nature of humanity, and it was something like a Greek play, and I really wanted to talk about that. And there's a lot of passion, deep love for the film, but. Don't say more because whatever I say always get misunderstood.
Okay, last thing, and I will note, Charlie XCX declared that this past year there was Joachim Trier summer, right? This was hyping up this great filmmaker, who is an up-and-coming filmmaker who you really admire, and not at this table, somebody who you really similarly believe in and want to give a shout out to. Joachim, as the namesake of this, you go first, please.
She did mention a couple of other directors too.
Yes.
PTA amongst others,
Yes.
who I think is a genius.
Yes.
But okay, there's a Norwegian director called Dag Johan Haugerud who won the Golden Bear this year. So he's not a newcomer. He's made films longer than I have, and the world is discovering him at the moment. And he's made great films.
I don't move in the festival circuit, so I don't see people when they're just breaking, you know. I mean, I used to. I mean, I remember when David Lynch showed up with Blue Velvet. That was pretty clear, but I mean, not lately.
Okay, no,
You gotta ask somebody else.
we'll go to Ryan.
I got Bruce Riley.
Yes.
You can't call him a newcomer.
Yeah, we can just say somebody that deserves more attention than they're getting.
Yeah, you know, we from the same area. Like I run into him getting coffee or what have you, but he kind of got a sensei vibe. He's just an incredible storyteller and got a very deep point of view. So I think, you know, I'll shout Bruce out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having trouble thinking newcomer, but like, I always think like someone who's now a very good friend, Kelly Reichardt, her films don't get the attention I think that they deserve. You know, I don't know the reason they feel, I guess, they might be too subtle, which is why they're so beautiful and fragile. And, you know, and there's other, like Alice Rohrwacher, I love, and
I was going to say Alice.
or Lucretia Martel. I'm thinking of these women that, you know, make incredible films and they don't get the attention that we get, I guess.
I would just say Happy as Lazaro.
Yeah.
It's one of the best films I've ever seen.
Well, on behalf of the Hollywood Reporter and everybody watching, thank you guys all so much for making the time to do this and for these terrific films that we've been talking about. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fun. We did it.